Okay, today's follow along is skin the cat and press to handstand. Now I'm going to show progressions and regressions of each one, so you don't need to have a press handstand and you don't need to have a full skin the cat. I'll show regressions as we go, but if you do have them, we could just do extra reps or make them harder, so you could go into a stool to press or open up the skin the cat into a harder position. Just make sure warm up wise you've done something to get yourself ready to do a handstand, so whether that's kicking up to the wall or freestanding. Condition that bottom of the press. So spending some time up on tiptoes, so like this. And then hanging wise, do a passive hang, active passive, so moving up and down, then arching scap pulls. So retracting, depressing, arching the back, keeping my arms straight. So a few reps of that, just to get the scapula nice and ready to do those skin the cats and press handstand type movements. Now, if you already have both movements and you just want to jump in with repetitions, just bang out. So if you can do sets of 5 repetitions of the full press handstand, so starting on the tiptoes, finishing on the tiptoes, and full range skin the cat. So ideally hanging from a dead hang position, pulling up into a tuck position, rolling through to your German hang and back out, and repeating the same repetition. So whichever one is your weaker movement, do the same repetition. So if you can only get 4 reps with the press handstand, do 4 slow reps with the skin the cat and try and roughly get the same time under tension. So we could just do that, we could do the full movement. Now if you have the full movement but need the wall assist, you could do that. So replace the press handstand with a press against the wall. So exactly the same movement, but just rolling up from that bottom position. Try and get as much back involved, so articulation of the spine as you go up. Try and get the feet out to the side so you're not demanding too much from the wall. We ideally don't want to be putting too much weight into the wall when we do this one. Also at the top of the movement, make sure your shoulders come off the wall and you get as close to the real handstand as you can. You could even float the heels off the wall for a second and go into a handstand. If you're not quite up to doing the full reps, another variation would be to do the eccentrics. So I kick to handstand, then I slowly come down with control through the press handstand path and finish on tiptoes. Again, 4 or 5 reps of that. And we could do a similar thing with the skin the cat. So you might not be able to pull up with a straight arm, so we can jump or use a bent arm to get up into position. Then we just do the eccentric down, so a real slow movement down, trying to keep into a tight tuck and try to keep the arms as straight as possible. Try and fill any gaps. So any gaps that you need to jump through or you normally fall through, try and get into a real tight tuck. One option is to go into a pike position, which keeps the feet the other side of the rings, and you can even push the legs out into the arms and use a bit of friction to slow you down. The idea of this is you just want to have time under tension throughout the movement. Again, 4 or 5 repetitions, just match the same as what you've done with the press handstand. If you don't have the balance, we can do exactly the same movement against the wall. So I could kick up to the wall, slowly go down, butt will touch the wall first, then low back, then mid back, then upper back, trying to keep against the wall as much as you can until you come down to tiptoes touch the floor. A different variation would be to use momentum. So I'm going to jump through the movement. So the idea with this with the press hands is we just want just enough jump to allow you to go through the movement. And then over time you can slowly decrease the momentum or the jump. And we can do exactly the same against the wall, and we can do exactly the same with the skin the cat. So I can jump or use a bit of a swing or a kip to get through that initial movement, but ideally on the down phase, you'll go quite slow and get that time under tension so we can slowly build that strength. And then another option, and if you're doing this one, I'd recommend that you are doing eccentrics as well. So you're doing some full range motion, but we could do partial range. So partial range press is where we start on the box. Now just remember when you start on the box with a partial range press handstand, you want to mimic the position that you would be in if you're doing the real press. So if you're doing a straddle movement, as your feet get higher, your feet will also get wider because you go around in that semicircle position or circle if you count both hands at the same time. So if you're halfway up, your legs would be nearly into a full straddle position. So you'd have to have the boxes quite wide. Same thing with the skin the cat. We just stay in that tuck position, and then I'm going to go on a tick-tock, so go as far as I can each direction. Then just try and test the water. Go a little bit, go back again. A little bit further, go back again, and slowly make that bigger and bigger on each side. So how do we pull that together? So one option would be to start with the easier variations and slowly make them harder and harder until you get to a point where it's challenging for you, but you can get some repetitions. Or you could just quickly warm up to your variation and then do sets of that. And the repetitions will dictate the intensity, so how hard you go. I can do harder skin the cats through to a 360 pull, but today because I wanted to get 5 repetitions and superset with the 5 presses, I stayed well within my ability so I could do more repetitions one option would be to go fewer repetitions and use harder variations, or you could do the opposite and go to like 10 repetitions and use a much easier variation. Let me know down in the comments how you go with this one. Let me know if you have any questions. Thumbs up and subscribe would be appreciated, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys.